Of all the sobering issues that burden his presidency, Barack Obama gave pride of place in his speech to the growing inequality between the citizens of his country.
The people understand that our country cannot succeed when a shrinking few do very well and a growing many barely make it.
A tiny handful of super rich in America soak up almost all the wealth created in the country over the last generation or so.
Peace on earth and goodwill towards men.
Amen.
How did that happen?
And this is Wall Street. Wall Street, a very short street.
Wall Street, just a short 8 blocks in Lower Manhattan where tourists flock to snap souvenirs of the addresses of famous banks, investment houses, and stock markets.
This particular building was a statement.
Maybe they come here because it's known as the world's financial center, and also dryly as the most dangerous neighborhood in America. Or maybe they come to see what they believe, understandably, is the place where economic catastrophes are born.
In the late 1800s, there was a banking crisis in the United States of America.
Where clever people get rich, hatching socially useless schemes involving other people's money, and then demand government save them from their bright ideas when everything goes sideways.
And they saved the country from a crisis.
This is what democracy looks like.
Maybe they come because Wall Street is the symbol of worrisome inequality in America.
Our streets! Our streets!
The death of the American dream, as increasingly the very rich appear to live their lives at a great distance from everyone else, as though they were on another planet. There have always been rich people in America. That's not the issue. Here's the issue. 50 years ago, as the economy grew, most Americans found themselves getting better off. The rich did better too, but most of the new wealth, most of it, was spread among the bottom 90% of income earners. Over the last 30 years, though, the economy has grown, and productivity has increased, but most people's incomes have barely kept pace with inflation. The rich, on the other hand, have seen their incomes soar. Most of the income growth of the last 30 years has gone to the top 1% of income earners.
That's just a remarkable concentration of income over this period.
Jacob Hacker is the director of the Institute of Social and Policy Studies at Yale University and the co-author of Winner Take All Politics, How Washington Made the Rich Richer and Turned Its Back on the Middle Class.
We've not seen anything like this in the United States in terms of a explosion of income at the very top since the Gilded Age, before the Great Depression.
The Gilded Age was the post-Civil War era in the U.S., an era characterized by industrial expansion, the growth of railways, and the amassing of tremendous wealth. The wealth belonged to men with names such as Rockefeller, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, and Morgan. To some, they were captains of industry, risk-takers with vision. To others, they were robber barons, ruthless swindlers with aristocratic pretensions.
And he would make deals with the railroads, perfectly legal at the time.
And Wall Street behavior then was at its worst, says John Steele Gordon, who's written extensively about those times.
Wall Street was his Wild West days. I mean, it was just lawless. I mean, everybody not only had their own lawyer, they had their own judge.
The innovators of the Gilded Age became a tiny class of super rich, but they also built America. They owned the primary industries, steel and oil, the modern infrastructure, railways and skyscrapers, and they created new and vital sectors, electric power, and eventually automobiles. Modern America was in birth then, and it's not surprising that wealth at that time was not widely shared. It was all so new, but that's hardly the case today.
The kind of inequality that we're seeing today is occurring against a backdrop of a modern advanced industrial economy where, we expect that we will see society capable of producing broadly distributed gains. And since the 1970s, our society has not been capable of producing those gains. Instead, almost all of the gains in income and wealth have been concentrated in the hands of those at the top.
It's important to understand that this is not an argument against capitalism or against profits. It's not a cry to burn down Wall Street. In fact, some of those who studied inequality closely and judged it a crisis also point out that capitalism has a good history in America. Writer Timothy Noah, for instance.
Income inequality has not been the way of capitalism. It wasn't the way of capitalism in the United States between the early 1930s and the late 1970s. It's not the way of capitalism now in a number of other countries.
The period from the end of the Second World War in 1945 until about 1973 has been called the Great Compression, or the Golden Age. Unlike in the Gilded Age, in the Golden Age, prosperity was widely and deeply shared.
This is no mere collection of homes.
This was the great expansion of the middle class into ever-sprawling suburbs and the full embrace of the American dream. The comfy home, the car, college, the whole kit and caboodle was available, as long as you weren't black, female, gay, or just different.
Nothing to be desired.
If you were a white male Christian, then it was a great time to belong to the middle class. And if you're a white male Christian today, or if you're of any ethnicity today, it's not a great time to be a member of the middle class.
I always thought being an American meant trying to help the other fella. And
beginning with the Ronald Reagan years in the 1980s and ending at the turn of the century, the U.S. experienced two unusually long periods of economic growth. During both periods, the people who got rich were the ones who were already rich. Most people didn't see much improvement in their lives, if any. Let me tell you about the very rich. They are different from you and me, wrote F. Scott Fitzgerald, and in the rolling hills of Greenwich, Connecticut, where some of the hedge fund managers have some of their homes, there are endless reminders that the rich are different. It's small, population just 60,000, but it has a main street with all the high-end fashion boutiques and jewelry stores. You can quench your thirst for a Ferrari, Bentley, Maserati, or Porsche without ever leaving this little town. They're all lined up on Putnam Avenue, just waiting for the kind of shopper who picks out a two-seater like this one because it might make a nice gift. Most would forgive you for envying this, but many would find it hard to forgive you for thinking there might be a problem with it.
I mean, the rich are getting enormously richer because of the new technology, but the poor are not getting poorer.
The explanation that new technology is what's making rich people richer ignores that new technology is available in all modern industrial democracies. Yet only in America do the spoils of economic growth go quite so disproportionately to the very rich. New technology led to new kinds of financial transactions and huge profits for Wall Street elites, but it didn't lead to new regulations, and it should have. Instead, lawmakers in Washington were persuaded regulation wasn't necessary, that markets would be self-regulating. And that raises an important question.
The question is, can you build a vibrant middle-class democracy on a foundation that is so lopsided? And we're just beginning to figure that out. But my answer is no, that over the long term, you cannot have this kind of concentration of wealth and income at the top and also have a vibrant democracy. It's too corrosive of the kind of shared sense of opportunity and the sense of political equality that makes a democracy tick.
The inequality debate did find its way into the 2012 presidential election. A central issue was taxes. Specifically, how much should wealthier Americans pay?
And then ask the wealthiest Americans to pay a little bit more to help pay.
Democrats and Barack Obama promised to tax the rich more. Republicans and Mitt Romney promised not to.
47% of Americans pay no income tax. So our message of low taxes doesn't connect.
Obama won the presidency, but Republicans controlled the House and used their power there to water down Obama's tax increases on the wealthy and then to allow a payroll tax increase to raise taxes on everyone else. even the lowest income earners. It's just the beginning, says Hacker.
After the election, there's going to be continuing mobilization of these groups at the state level, at the national level, and by groups, I mean groups that want to prevent serious control of healthcare costs, or groups that would want to prevent an effort to try to tackle carbon emissions that contribute to global warming, or groups that are concerned about efforts to increase middle-class standard of living through tax code or through minimum wage legislation or by encouraging unions.
Last month, crowds in Lansing, Michigan besieged the state legislature. Republicans had just passed a right-to-work bill that took away a union's right to collect money for negotiating contracts for non-union members. Middle-class people should worry about that, says Noah.
Nobody else is going to look after the ordinary wage earner. There's no other institution in America that's interested either at the workplace level or at the political level. There's no other institution that is going to defend the interests of ordinary people.
Some disappointing earnings reports. 500 index is down 3.
Competition is heating up in the market.
So this is the State of the Union today, as Barack Obama begins his second term. He is, at least symbolically, the custodian of the American dream. A dream that life will always get better and richer and fuller for everyone. The ideal has never matched the reality, but through much of its history, you could argue America was at least moving towards the ideal. You wouldn't say so now. Keith Boag, CBC News, Washington.